Do you have the images? Do I share my screen for you? Do you see the title page, Notre-Dame de Paris?
So, if you are prepared, you can start your presentation.
All right. Do you have my screen? Do you see my screen?
Yes, we see it.
All right.
It's perfect. We see your screen and also your face. We are connected. Perfect.
So I heard you presented me, but I'm one of the three architects, the team of chief architects of historic monuments working on the restoration site of Notre-Dame with Philippe Villeneuve, who was the first architect in charge, and Rémi Froment, who is especially working on the frameworks, rebuilding of the framework and the spire. And I'm in charge mainly on what is about depollution and restoring the inner space and consolidating and rebuilding the vaults. And so I will show you a state of Notre-Dame and the studies we've done, and where we are now with that huge building. And let's begin. Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is the context of Notre-Dame. You see a map of Paris with the green line, which is the Seine, the river, and the inner center. I try to show you with this. So the inner center of Paris, which was the medieval center, and there the islands and the Île de la Cité, where the cathedral was erected in the 12th century. So this is a part of the Île de la Cité, and you can see an aerial view of the cathedral with the roof protections we did to protect the inner space from the rain after the disaster of the fire. On the right-hand side, you see the cathedral as it is now, but you see mainly the western facade, and in the background, the huge crane, which is used to, since months now, and completed by other mobile ones, to work on the reconstruction of the building. These are medieval images on 17th century, where you can see on the links on the left image, the cathedral with its spire. You see the demons.
Mr. Prunet?
Yes?
Excuse me, and I'm sorry for interrupting you. Please take your microphone.
Okay.
Yes,
is it better?
before your mouth. Perfect, perfect.
Should I go back, or did you understand what I said?
That's why it is perfect.
Before?
That's why it is perfect. You can continue. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Do you hear us?
Yes, I do.
Perfect.
And do you hear me?
Yes.
Should I go back, or did you hear what I said before?
No, this is perfect. You can continue. Okay. Thank you very much.
Well, there you see all the images of Notre-Dame. On the left image, you see the medieval city center with the bridges of inhabited bridges on the Seine, and the cathedral, the western facade, and the spire between the two towers. And on the right-hand picture, you can see the eastern, the place where we call it the chevet in France. So this is the eastern facade of the cathedral with the transept here and the spire. So there was a spire before Viollet-le-Duc's restoration in the 19th century. So these are images of the Paris center in the medieval time. You see the cathedral standing on the island, On that part here, this is the Royal Palace before the Louvre was extended, and which is now still with the Sainte-Chapelle, a very ancient place of Paris, center history devoted to to justice. This is 17th, in the middle, 17th, 18th century picture of Paris. And you see that it was a still very dense context where the cathedral was built. Okay, now these images, these pictures show the cathedral as it was after the fire, the day after. So you see the nave in the top left image with water brought by the fire extinction waters, and you see the heaps of pieces of wood of the spire and of the basis of the spire under the crossing, mixed with pieces of stone coming from the vaults which were collapsed through the burning of the frameworks. Here on the right-hand side, you see how it was also with these pieces of framework of the basis of the spire, and the rest mixed with scaffolding elements which melted under the high temperatures of the fire. On the top, on the basis left, you see the crossing hole with pieces of the scaffolding suspended, and then the triangle of the north transept vault, which was also collapsed under the shock of the framework. And on top, down right, you see the top metal piece, which is a corb in metal, iron, and the last piece of the framework, which was conserved. And you see that spire percuted the vault of the nave, and then this piece was kept on the vault, which shows in a way that the vaults were very strong elements, very tough elements. On the left hand, it's a plan of the main vessel, the center part of the cathedral, with the white stains, which shows the collapsed parts of the vaults, and the red elements shows the places where we settled wooden consolidation element to avoid the crawling which could have occurred of the vaults. Then you see these pieces of wood here under the main arches of the crossing, and you see the vault after it was weeped. It was of all the elements of the framework with the archaeologists in order to keep all these elements in a kind of usable order to examine and analyze them. And you can see also the walls, over the walls, which are very black and with many pieces of reddish or white color, which are elements of the stone face, which were in a way desolidarized from the stones by the high temperature and the how could I say, and the extension of the stone and dilatation of the stones because of these high temperatures. And we know the different temperatures also from the different colors. When you see kind of reddish color, it's about 350 to 600 centigrades, and when it becomes gray, it's about between 60 and 600 and 900 degrees centigrade, and when it becomes grayish and white, it's about 1000. And at that time, the limestone is changing into lime, into calc. How could I say? Yes, I think it's lime. On the right top photograph, you see the first securing we did on the vaults to stop the pieces which were hanging from the arches. You see underneath the vault, you see that arch here, and these elements were unstable. So we put a kind of mortar of plaster of gypsum and reinforcement of glass fiber to go around these unstable elements to prevent them from collapsing, and then to stop enabling the people to work under the vaults. And then we could do that reinforcement from the entrados underneath the vaults. These are the vault deformations. A bit difficult to see on the photograph, but we rendered it with that reddish stripes which shows that the ways the vaults were exposed to the shocks of the wooden elements of the roofs. So you must see that the roof framework is about 15 meters by 15, and it was some 6 or 7 meters over the vaults. So the shocks were very strong, very rough, and at the same time, or a bit later after, as long as the wood was burning, and the high temperatures made the vaulting getting over its place, and it was in a way about 19 centimeters or 20 centimeters on the cross on the main axis line over their first place at the outskirts of the arches. So after that time of high temperature, for about 6 to 12 hours from the different places, the vault went back to its first place, but with many distortions and problems. And there you see some physical alteration of the outside of the vault, and the stones are also partly desolidarized for about 3 or 4 centimeters of thickness. And you must know that these vaults are about 12 meters span, and they were only 15 centimeters thick. So they owe their conservation to a very a kind of very clever discovering of the beginning of the Gothic times, which is a doubled curving of the vaults, and a bit like the shell of a boat in a way. So you have the feeling of seeing a boat returned, and this, a bit like an eggshell or so, give a very strong strength. There you see on the drawing the diagnosis we did of the vaults with the lags, the places where the vaults was not at its original level, etc. And the image of what we have after that time. You can see also pieces, part of a kind of gypsum shell, which was done in the 19th century to protect the vault from the risk of a fire. But this was then a great problem because the gypsum was dissoluted and entered the stones of the vaults and also the joints. And you will see a bit later what occurred. So because the cathedral was covered with lead, and that lead was fixed directly on oak planks. The lead cover was very alterated, with on the inner side was mainly no more lead, but lead oxide, which was spread on the inner cathedral surface with that fire. So we had to depollute. There was about sometimes several 100,000 micrograms of lead powder on the inner surface, and so it was it could have been dangerous for the people working in the cathedral. So we began then to a big depollution with vacuum cleaner and special vacuum cleaners and filters to get that pollution back, and then to permit the people to work in more normal conditions. Then you see how it was before and after the cleaning, not the cleaning, but the depollution with the vacuum cleaner. Then we had tests in the painted chapel, which were restored and repainted by Viollet-le-Duc in the 1860s. And you see on the left image how it was, how grayish and dark the paintings were. And then with a rinsing of 2 or 3 seconds of a film of ACT, TAC, TAC, ACT, I don't know how you say in English, and how we recovered the original colors of the Viollet-le-Duc design. And after we did for whole restoration of these chapel paintings for tests, and then we could get the protocol for the cleaning and restoring of also inner surfaces of the cathedrals. As for the stained glasses and for gilding in some parts as the keystones and capitals, and well, also different other things as sculptures and etc. Then you see one of these 19th century stained glass pieces, which was restored before taking its place back. But we won't do in that restoration campaign all these stained glasses restoration, and mainly not all the stained glasses of the 3 main roses, because they have many medieval parts, and they need to be studied with more time before restoration. So these are how the vaults were about 1.5 years after the fire. And there you can see all the physical-chemical disorders with occurring. They were very, very wet because of first fire extinction waters of the firemen, and these fire extinction waters contain salts in order to work better and work a longer time in a way. And then the gypsum elements, which freed some sulfates, and the sulfates went through the joints and then began to replace the carbonates of the limestone. And then you see what happens. It's because it crystallized, it's about 98% of humidity in the stone. And then it's a big lack, because this surface was the inner stone cutter surface in a way. So it has a historical value. Not only, it's not only a shape, but also a meaning one. Then you see also what we call saltpeter, which is KNO3, or how could I say, potassium nitrate. also because of organic salts which were in the in the upper side of the vaults. So we organized there was an intervention to keep the vaults, to stop the vaults decay, and we did a kind of plaster, a special plaster of sand and kaolin, which is kind of very fine, agile, and this had to get it was applied on the inner side of the vaults and the arches and upper walls in order to keep them from decay and to stop the occurring of gypsum in the inner side. And so the salts went into that that plaster, but it was a very intelligent thing which was done by our laboratory for historic monuments, and because it was meant to last for a long time, and so we could keep that plaster for about 6 months, the time for the vaults to get far less wet and almost dry. And when the vault gets dry, there is no risk of more gypsum occurring on the inner side of the vaults. Then you see in the center image down how it was after it was the one test to see how it was after the vault was treated and protected. So this is what we done for the crossing to rebuild it, and these are big, huge scaffolding elements made of wood and metal. And the span of the diagonal arches is about 17 meters. And the inner oculus is about 80 centimeters high. So it's a big, huge pieces of hard stone, about 2.2, 2.4 density. And on which we will rebuild the vaulting triangles, which are made of much lighter stone, about 1.4. All these stones come from the outskirts of Paris, but are very, their quality is very close to the original ones, but we could not reuse any ancient carrier under the town city center. And okay, and this is the reconstruction which was made after the 3-dimension scan. We had the chance to have a scan from Andrew Tallon, who is an American professor of architectural history, and he did a quite complete scan of the cathedral and inner side and outskirts too, some years before the fire. And this was our main source of redrawing, and this was in a way the reason we decided to rebuild it as it was before. In a way, in the following consequences of the Nara Charter of 1993, which is a kind of renewal and extension of our Western view of the way of restoring the ancient buildings. This is a picture of the Rouen Cathedral in Normandy, which had to be partly rebuilt, and it's the last time you see on the image on the top right. It was about 70 years ago. The last time when in France we had the opportunity to rebuild vaults. So for us it was kind of relearning how to build vaults. It's not an easy thing, and to understand how these Parisian vaults, which were the very new things in the Gothic times, were built with double curving. You see on the left image that the vaults are made of small arches linked together with mortar, and when you look at the perpendicular direction, it's also curved, and this is this double curving which gives the vault its high resistance. So we studied the geometry of the how the vaults were conceived, geometrically conceived, and you see that the radiuses are very very long one in a way. So we think that it was not probably not really drawn and calculated, but probably organized on the site itself, because the beginning of the vault has smaller radiuses than the top one, and so it's kind of adaptation all along the reconstruction or the construction for them. So this is the nave collapsed vault, which was crushed by the top part of the spire, and a bit like a missile. And so this is the drawing of the rebuilding of the arch. And what I didn't say is that as for the crossing, all the arches will be rebuilt a bit higher than what we could see on the 3D scans, because there will be a kind of deformation as they will get in charge. They will take their pressures on the joints, etc. These are the tests to clean, and you see the color and gilding which is back on the keystones, and you see on the left, on the right image, how after desalination and depollution, the vault was completely black. Probably mainly because of the how could I say of main ancient lighting with candles and which were all over the cathedral. So there was a kind of black shape of the inner space. And as Viollet-le-Duc restored the cathedral, he used these black joints, probably because he was not able to clean the inner surface. And so we wanted to get it back to its color and give the same color for the vault, which were black, as for the walls, which were the stone original color, which is kind of light brownish color, like you see there. So we added some lime water on the surface to go back to this, and these are different tests. That is now the restoration of the upper wall inside the framework, under the roof, and over the walls. And these places, which are very much damaged, these surfaces, by you see here in blue the stone dilatation. Then we decided to keep it as it was, because the structural engineers told us that it was possible, and that the residual thickness of the wall was enough to get the weight of the framework back down to the main wall underneath. And so this is restored with you see on the left and right images how it was before and after. This is also a test, and so we put some mortar around the leaks, the zone, in order to close the stone, and then we do some holes, long holes, and inject a special mortar, very fluid, thixotropic, and then we add some fiberglass armoring inside, and so we can keep close to the nowadays post fire aspect of the walls. So the top, may I come back to this? This stone here is the upper stone of the walls. Every stone is linked with metal pieces since the Middle Age, and as you see, this stone will take in charge the framework, which is on that point here, and this is completely destroyed. So we decided to change all that stone and not to repair it. And these are the new stones with stone cutting tests also. And so the special, how could I say, special elements to cut the stones were done after analysis of the stone cutting, ancient stone cutting effects. So now that's the work for the framework. So this is a kind of demonstration on site, and with the archaeologists, we know now that all these ancient frameworks were cut by hand, and so they go along the wood fiber, and which is not the same when you cut it when you saw it. So there is no sawing work for all the rebuilding of the medieval frameworks, but they will be cut by axes like that, and so it has to be done with fresh cut wood, and wood which is cut in winter after the, how could I say, the fluid is back, in order that they be able to dry in a quicker way. So you see here the spire and the center part of the framework and of the roof were rebuilt by Viollet-le-Duc. He did the spire about 20 meters higher than it was, but in a way, the way it looked in the ancient drawings of the 17th century, where it was in a way enhanced compared to its real size. And so you see a first reconstruction drawing as it was meant to be in the medieval time, and then Viollet-le-Duc was working with another important French architect at the time, who was Lassus, Jean-Baptiste Lassus, and who restored the Sainte-Chapelle of the royal palace, which was close to Notre-Dame, as I showed you before. And they were not agreeing about what they had to do. And this ancient, the ancient spire was destroyed before the French Revolution. It was not a revolutionary act, but it was done because it was dangerous, and it was analyzed by Viollet-le-Duc as being too light, and so he wanted it bigger and probably also kind of architectural demonstration. So this spire is about 60 meters high, and from the bottom to the top, and it points at about 96 or 97 meters over the ground level. And on the right photograph, you see all the statues, one of which is a representation of Viollet-le-Duc as Saint Thomas, who is the saint representing the architects, meant to represent the architects, the one who wanted to know if the Christ was really wounded by the stigmats. And so that's the framework drawings. The red part is the Viollet-le-Duc and a bit further rebuilt part in the 19th century. So you see the construction has the same shape, but it's built a different way, more modern in a way, and that huge spire. And the other parts are the medieval rests, the nave at the end of the 13th century, 12th century, sorry, and the core, which was rebuilt after the construction of the nave. In the 12th century, sorry, I have no more pointer. I think it could be there. Sorry. In the 12th century, the elevation of the cathedral had 4 levels: the main arches and columns, the tribunes, a kind of small roses level, and the upper windows. And in the 13th century, at the end of the 12th century, they decided to take these roses away and to make bigger top windows. And they so elevated the walls in order to free the frame from the vaulting constraints. So it's very interesting to see that all this is a kind of laboratory of Gothic architecture from the core to the western facade. And for the framework and the roof, the first framework of the core disappeared in the 13th century as the experiments of the nave one were useful to change and renew the top, the upper part of the core. So this is the main reason which decided us to say we have to do it as it was, and because it was possible because we had many survey drawings. There was a whole campaign made by Rémy Fromont, who's in charge of the reconstruction of the roof now, and one of his associates and partners. And then we had scans also, which were made hopefully before the fire, and so we could redo it almost as a 3-dimensional model in a way. And these are drawings of Rémy Fromont, and it was not only a kind of analysis on site, but all these elements were measured very rigorously too. There you see all these elements. You have one main piece of framework, and the secondary ones, which are every 6 or 7 main elements. You see them here, 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 and you see they're free from the organization of the buttresses and columns. This is the progressing of a kind of free framework from all the underneath organization, which is different. And the interesting thing is when they arrived, the 7 first main pieces, like this one, were experimentations with long woods, with small woods, with kind of mixing. And after the seventh one, they decided to keep the last organization and to keep it for the rest of the nave. So this is very interesting to see that this cathedral, in a way, is a real laboratory of Gothic architecture it was possible because it was also the French king's cathedral, so it was probably the richest one at the time in France, in the French kingdom. And this is what allows us to think that rebuilding still remains in the frame of authenticity and in the way the Nara Charter, after the Venice Charter of 1963, explains it in a way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Prunet. It was really interesting. And now let me open very short discussion. It will take only 10 minutes because Mr. Prunet doesn't have much more time. So
it's okay for me.
Thank you for being with us. Has someone a question or something? What would you know from? Okay. Mr. Stulz, and we will wait. Microphone is over there. So I will give you a first question. Mikrofon je tam na stole. Just please, short question, short answer. I think the goal of the reconstruction of Notre-Dame Cathedral is not only to improve the experience of visiting the monument, but also to mitigate the effects of heat waves. What it means, which specific steps will lead to this? Do you know something about this?
When you mean heat waves, you speak about the climate changes?
Yes.
Well, in a way, do you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
We are, the problem of the heat waves are mainly about the roof and the spire, because we have nowadays stronger winds, and well, the heat waves probably also have an incidence of the stone dilatation, probably, but we at the time being think the problem is mainly about the spire and the roof, and we have a kind of study implementation, and we did studies in wind. How could you say what engineer use for it's difficult to explain for me. I'm sorry, my English is a bit approximative, and it's a kind of souffleur. It's a place where you put models of the structure in a kind of place where you blow very strong air currents, and streams in a way, and we do also calculating models to see how it works for 10 years wing, 50 years wing, centennial winds, etc. Because we have stronger winds than before, but the structure which was drawn by Viollet-le-Duc is a very strong structure, and every piece recover its neighbors. So it's also a very difficult thing to build, and because it has to build piece by piece, and it cannot be pre-built and then taken up with the crane in elements, because these elements recover themselves from the inner side and not from the outer side, which gives them a very huge strength in a way. So this spire had never had a problem, only probably with a kind of I think it was at the time of the re-erecting of the spire, and there was a huge storm which distorted a bit the part of the spire, but otherwise there was no problems. But anyway, our engineers are working with huge calculating things which take more than weeks because it's very difficult, and every knot of the structure is examined.
Thank you very much for your answer. Mr. Stolz has a question.
Ano, mě by zajímalo, jak...
I wonder to what extent the fire destroyed the pieces, works of art of the cathedral, and what was the destiny of those invaluable glass, stained glass works of art in the windows?
The fire, the only pieces of glass which were destroyed by the fire were the small roses of the transept. Over the huge roses you can see on the images, maybe I go back to show you. Well, you see, this is the north rose here, and the fire stopped over the vaults. Only here, and in two other parts, here in the nave, the top of the spire percuted that place, went here. So there was a big hole. Then at about 4 o'clock in the morning, the heap of wood which was down, partly down, on that vault of the crossing, crawled the vault. And there was a heap of stone and not much wood kept here. So, but all the inner side was black and recovered covered with black stains and lead. But happily we could take it away with vacuum cleaning, as I said you before, and all these stained glasses were intact. So the only, I can try to show you another image. The only stained glasses which were destroyed were this rose, a small rose, which gives light to the inner space of the roof. But they were entire 19th century. They are smaller than that. It's a much smaller one than the huge one in the south and north aisle of the transept. And these elements were totally destroyed. But the main one, which conserves all the Gothic time elements and the restoration of the 19th century, were intact. There is nothing left from the spire except some elements, metal elements, and all these statues which were in restoration. As you know, the spire was to be restored at the time of the fire. And I will go back to these first images. Voila. Happily, all the top windows, you see them, they are intact here. They were very quickly taken away, and they are now in restoration. They will be back in a short time. Yesterday, we were in the south transept, and we will get the scaffolding down in the next days. It's the inside restoration is finished, and the vault are consolidated. And this huge scaffolding, you can see here, you heard probably about it, has been for about 2 years left because it was very difficult to know how we could take it down, because each time you took a bar away, the tensions were released, and then it was a very difficult thing. So it was a huge study, and then we finally get rid of that threat for the building. As well, we could take that metal courbe out back away, and now these elements, all the wooden elements here have been how could I say, have been inventoried in a way, and they're all in a huge container in the north of Paris, in a huge place where the archaeologists and historians may work, and scientists just have to ask for. And there is a huge group of scientists, mainly French, but also German, American, Italian, working, probably other nationalities too. I'm sorry for the one I avoid I don't remember all, but there is a huge concern. And we had many friendful proposals of help from architects of the European cathedrals. We could not answer everyone, but Philippe Villeneuve is in contact, and we will soon be in contact with them. I think in December, the French chief architects of historic monuments will receive architects of the European Dombaumeister Association. So we had a very, very high luck, and if you see, I will try to take that image bigger. You see the small hand on the photograph? This is the 15th century Virgin of the pillar of Notre-Dame, and it was completely, it was miraculously saved from the vault crawling here. And so you see all the oak stalls inside the car, what we call the Vœu de Louis XIII's remembrance altar. All these elements are happily still there. And it was a huge trauma, but we now see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Many work before you. Mr. Prunet, thank you. You've been with us. My last question, and very, very shortly, please. Did the work on the reconstruction of the cathedral shows you something really surprising?
We had surprises all along, in a way, because it was, as I said, for the vaulting, it was a kind of rediscovering. The work we did to analyze the roof structure was also a discovery. Inside the building, I think the searchers work about different elements, such as metal in the Gothic construction. Took time also to survey, to make a very fine survey of all the things. Then archaeologists inventoried the different mortars and stones, and we've been working also on the metrology of the arches, how the elements were done at the time, how they were assembled, and so many things. It's a bit difficult to explain it in a short time. But, well, yes, this was a huge discovery, and this restoration site is a way to rediscover the cathedral, the ancient techniques, and to work on them. And I think it will be a huge source of knowledge which should nourish what we know about Gothic architecture in the next time, and we hope we will be able, and the scientists and historians and the architects, to share it for the best sake of restoration and knowledge of that architectural history time.
Thank you very much. Our guest was Pascal Prunet, chief architect of historical monuments from France. Thank you for joining us, and good luck.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all the people, European people and others who intended and still intend to help us to work on that building.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.